Good morning, I'm Nemesis. This is RN Homesteading. Thank you for stopping on in with what I have going on today, guys. So, what I have going on here is we're going to be making some labs. Specifically, I'm going to teach you how to make labs too. So, this is going to take a few weeks realistically in order to do this. So, for you guys, it's all going to be seamless, but there'll be times where there'll be a week or so in between me making some videos for this. So just know that this is a 2-week process right off the bat. You can't do that over YouTube, you know. But I digress here. So with labs, what is specifically labs? Labs is lactic acid bacteria. That is what labs is. And it has many purposes. It can be used as a cleaner. It can be used as a pest management in the garden. It can be used as powdery mildew, an all-natural way to get rid of powdery mildew. Now, powdery mildew outside, you'll see that in your any of your squash varieties, pumpkins, cucumbers, zucchinis, especially like towards the end of the year. You'll see the powdery mildew starting to form on the leaves, and once the powdery mildew takes over the leaf, it basically stops that leaf from providing photosynthesis, which is, converting carbons into sugars for the plant to be able to feed. Energy. It's limiting the amount of energy that each solar panel can provide. And there's no way to I'm going to go ahead and rinse it off. Adding water would make it worse. So we need something that's going to combat it a little bit more effectively, that would actually attack it. And we want to use something that is organic, because synthetic pesticides don't care what it comes in contact with. Does not care. It will kill off good and bad. My biggest problem with a lot of the pesticides is the amount of salts that they use in the pesticides. If you look at a lot of your synthetic fertilizers and your synthetic pesticides, they are salt-based fertilizers, salt-based pesticides. It sterilizes the soil and helps the plant uptake everything in dead soil. So I'm trying to figure out ways to do everything a little bit more organically. Labs is one of those organic things. We're going to be going on a whole thing of making more organic stuff that's more suited for me and you to be able to do everything on a budget. So labs, super simple to make, right? Grab some rice. Whether you are doing you want to do long grain white rice, or any kind of non-instant rice. You do not want to use instant rice on this. You want to use regular rice. I used it with this because it was the only thing that was open. I have another thing of it. To me, it doesn't matter. This is I can't even pronounce that. Canilla from Goya rice. So it's long grain white rice, and basically what you do is you take a cup of this, one whole cup. Get yourself a large mason jar. Put 1 cup of this white rice in the bottom of this. Then you want to sit there and take, if you have chlorinated water, like you're in a bigger city, you're going to have to take an extra day to do this, because if you don't have unchlorinated water, so you cannot, if you're in a big city, you cannot use your tap water straight out of the tap. You've actually got to let the chlorine off gas. They put stuff in there that have fungal and microbial, antimicrobial, antifungal stuff in the water so that it can flow through the pipes and not get you sick. So you'll have to sit there and set the water up a day in advance, and preferably if you have an air bubbler, and kind of aerate it, and it'll help off gas all the chemicals that they've got in the water. Realistically, if you're in a city, you should be drinking, heavily filtered water, whether you're doing reverse osmosis or you are doing like a pure or a Brita filter in there. That would be ideal. If anything, what I would say, you want to get a good clean source of water. You can boil some water on there if you're in a city. It'll help off gas everything. Two, you can if you got equipment to be able to distill some water, be nice and clean, pure. You can buy distilled water, so you know it's nice and pure. Or if all these options are not, if these things are not really a good option for you or a good fit, you can also, if you are in a hot area and you're still running your AC unit. I'm up towards the end of my year. AC unit's not really on for my bedroom. It's not really on for my my little growing room where I start all my seedlings, because I have that a little bit more climate control. Don't want your seedlings to be too hot or too cold, the Goldilocks zone. But you can use the drippings from your AC unit because it's pure water. It's condensed water, just like you can boil some water and then condense it and have some distilled water. It's of the same process. So the only difference between grabbing AC drippings versus distilling water on your stove is that distilled water is deoxygenated. So a lot of the available oxygen has been depleted in the water. So in order to kind of reverse that, you can put that water, once it cools down, into a bucket and put an put an air stone in there, and have like a fish pump in there and kind of reoxygenate everything. These are options. But I would sit there and say that you do want to let the water be oxygenated, because we're going to be growing some microbes. But that's like, you want to have a good clean source of water that doesn't have any kind of bacterial or fungal inhibitors in it. That's the big takeaway on this. So make sure that you got a good clean source of water. You take a cup of this and you put that into your big mason jar, fill it up about halfway with water, and then just sit there and shake it for probably about five-ish minutes, sitting there shaking it. And what you're doing is you're washing the starches off of the rice. And then you can sit there and you can take the rice, and if you were going to cook with it, you can sit there and cook with your rice. It's not like you just rendered it garbage. You just washed off some of the starches that are on the outside of the rice. This will, in some places, people automatically wash their rice. It helps with the cooking process. So again, you can still use your rice afterwards. And after about 5-ish minutes of mixing, you will come up with a solution like this that has that's like no longer clear water, right? You can tell that there's stuff in it. I made this actually yesterday. So after 24 hours, you can already see there's sediment in the bottom of this. There was no sediment whenever I first shook it all up, but obviously it took some of the rice was suspended in the water, which is fine. And then you take a microfiber cloth or a cheesecloth, because we don't want like contaminants to get into it, but we want that airflow. And the airflow is going to allow natural bacteria that are in the air with us to allow those to go in, but nothing like I got cats. It's not going to let a cat here in here to contaminate anything. So we just want the air to be coming in and out of here and breathing. After 24 hours, you should start seeing sediment in the very bottom of the jar. And keep this into like a cool, dark place. Now I've only pulled this out just for this video, and after this video, it's going right back in there until I come up until the next phase. So this is the very beginning of what you need to do, the beginning of your first 7-day process. You mix it up, you put it in here, put it into a dark spot for 7 days, and then come back to it. So with that being stated, I'll see you guys in 7 days. Check this out. So that was Sunday when I started this. It's now Thursday. So I've got until next Sunday to get to the last bit of that, but check that out. There was none of this stuff was in there. This is the bacteria getting in there. And you can see how it settles out at the bottom here. Very cool. This is like one heck of a science experiment. Now I disturbed this, and you can see, and my camera won't focus in on it, but you can see like little sediment particles kind of floating around. Whenever I moved this, like there was like a bunch of stuff underneath this foam, and it just started sprinkling down after I picked it up. So I take it that's normal. I have no idea. That's the first time I'm making labs. Welcome back, everybody. It has been 7 days for me. It's been a moment for you guys. But here we have the beginning of our culture here. We have our milk for the next process in another jar to be able to kind of transfer what I have in here because let's go ahead and uncap this. Let me see if I can get it to show up on camera for you guys. But you see all that stuff that's floating in there? That we do not want to get in there. And if you could see the stuff, it's on the bottom too. So we're trying to not capture that. So that's what we're trying to not capture in all of this. And it shouldn't smell rancid. It should actually kind of smell like yeast. And that's what it smells like. It smells like kind of like oatmeal yeast. That's kind of what it smells like to me. And that's how you know it was done properly. Perfect. So, again, this isn't something that you just go splash and pour in because we want to just get the liquid that's in between here. I find that if you pour it slowly, the stuff that stays on the stuff that's floating on the top will stay in there for the most part, and the stuff on the sediment on the bottom won't come gushing out. So patience is of the virtue. I do have a little tray here that I would use for microgreens in case I have a whoopsie daisy. And let's go ahead and try pouring this. Let's go for this nice and slowly. And you see, I can already tell that everything is kind of doing exactly what I want. the rest that's in there. You can sit there, put that in their compost pile. The compost pile will be really happy about that. And then you can sit there, pour your milk into this. And I will give this a little shaky shake. Make sure all that all that goodness stays in there like that. And then do the whole same process all over again. It sits into the same area where you had it before for another 7 whole days. And then it should separate like cheese would, where you would have your curds floating at the top and your whey sitting at the bottom. And you skim off the curds off of it, and the whey is your lactic acid bacteria that you were looking for. But again, you can go ahead and pitch this into your compost pile. It'll help break everything down because it's got good biotics in there. Microbes are all cultured up into that stuff, and we can sit there and let it do its thing. So I will see you all in another 7 whole days. Just like that, it's been another 7 days, guys. And here we are at the final stage of making our labs, our lactic acid bacteria. And basically, we've now got to separate the curds and the whey. If you guys aren't familiar with the cheese making process, curds are your solid parts of your cheeses, and your whey is the liquids that are left behind. And that's basically what we have here. We have full separation. If you would have seen in the clip right before we got here of just that little panning shot of this, and that was like day 2 or 3 when I took that little video of the milk already have separated. It was really cool. So now we get to separate everything, and we're going to be taking the curds and I'll put that into my my compost, because it's not something that I would eat just because it wasn't created in a very sterile environment. I would not consider this edible cheese in any way, shape, or form, just because of the bacteria count that is actually in the cheese or in the curd. And you're waiting for basically the lactic acid bacteria to get its colony up high enough, and it will have gotten rid of any other culture in here. This is a good cleaner, so you can clean. It will basically it will take any kind of bacteria that are on the surface, and the labs will actually eat that, some of the bacteria that are left behind, and it will go after molds and mildews. So it is basically a all-natural cleaner. So we're at that point where we're going to need to separate it. Now, with some of the things you're going to want, you're going to get another jar. Another thing that you're also going to want, you could take a cheesecloth or a thin shirt or something like that, and just kind of pour that through. And we're trying to catch the curds and the whey, and we're trying to separate, and we're trying to keep the whey in this jar so we can discard everything else. Another thing that's optional, if you guys don't already have one, which will be a label printer so people know what you've just done, and nobody gets confused. Always label your stuff. If you're unable to, if you don't have a label maker, get some tape or something like that right on it, and this way it's very well clearly labeled. Moving forward, so let's go ahead, and I could already smell this. It smells like some funky cheese. So this is the first time I'm uncapping it in 7 days.
Oh, oh yeah, it smells like funky cheese, that is for sure. Let's see if I can show this. This is wild.
That's the curds in the whey. Check that out. That is really cool.
It's like bacteria curds with bacteria whey. I mean, it does have that smell. You can see that there is bacteria growing on top of the curds. So, very interesting. But let's go ahead and get to pouring. Now, you don't have to pour it fast because like we're trying to separate everything, so it may take a little bit of time. Well, depending on how fast this takes, well, I prefer to actually have it in my right hand versus my left hand. I got a little more control. And kind of like let this thing kind of divot in this way. When you put this down, I can go like this, and it'll hold that little divot. This way it's not like flat, and it gives a little bit of room. And I've got this tray down in case it decides to make a mess on me. I'm self-contained, and the wifey is not going to get mad at me. So let's do this. Now it moved. Too funny. Now the cheese moved. Oh, woo! As soon as that cheese moved, man, it's got a smell. That is for sure. Thank God this is not smell-o-vision. So this is
the cheese that's left. That was what was at the top. And this is lactic acid bacteria, or lactose bacillus, aka labs.
And you put a little lid on this. It's good to go. Make a label on this. Now that's all set up, and then what you do with this, you can sit there and just store this in the refrigerator, and or put this in. You can store this in a refrigerator or a cool, dark place, and it will store very nicely like that. And from there, you can sit there and dilute this down. Like I said, you can use this for like if your plant has powdery mildew. You can sit there and dilute, take like a shot of this stuff and put it into a gallon of water. And you can, what they call foliar spray, which you're spraying the leaves that are affected with the powdery mildew. And the bacteria that are in here will go after that and kill that off. And we can sit there and use this as like our mother. And basically we can make other things with this. So you can use this in compost to kind of help get the bacteria into there and start the breakdown process of things, because these bacteria they need to eat too. And that's why you don't want to just like let these things sit out in the sunlight. The pure sunlight will kill everything off in here. So if you're wanting to keep this for a longer period of time, I would recommend putting it in the refrigerator. It slows down the microbial growth inside of here. And granted, it's all bacteria. They're gonna make its own little ecosystem like they already have. There is no oxygen in here, so I mean, this is lack of oxygen style bacteria. But it's still a beneficial bacteria. Not all anaerobic bacteria are bad. Some of them are. And if you got your soil and it's without oxygen, your ecosystem in the soil is thrown off. And putting something like this in here into your soil is not going to correct that issue. You've got to figure out why your soil is not holding oxygen before you start adding things to adding amendments to it. So whether you have a calcium deficiency or something like that, but that's a different topic for a different video. So I hopefully everybody found this information very helpful. If you're wanting to utilize labs, I mean, this stuff works in a lot of places. You can use it as a household cleaner if you don't mind smelling cheese. That will be the only drawback of it, but it is a natural cleaner, and it'll go after molds and mildews. So keep that in mind. And it's not like a strong, oh my god, cheese smell. This has got a funk to it. But this has got the curds in there, so it's got a lot of the proteins still over here. So the proteins is what really has more of a triggering smell versus the whey, where the whey doesn't have as much protein left in there, and whatever protein's in there has been eaten up by all the different bacterias and microbiology that was in here before the labs took over and basically sterilized everything in here. So the only thing that's in here now is lactic acid bacteria now. There should not be anything else in here. That's what makes this so nice. And why it's such an effective cleaner is that this style of bacteria will eat everything in its sight. And it's very specific of what it goes after. So it's not something that it goes after healthy living tissues. It goes after things that are decaying and rotting. So this is a very helpful bacteria. So if you guys have any comments or questions, use cases, things that you're not sure what you can use it on, certainly drop the comments in down below. If I don't know, I'm certainly able to find all that information out for you. We're more than happy to help everybody out. So with that being said, I hope you all learned something. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and like always, may your thumbs always be green. I'll see you on the next one.